What's up, everybody? The Game 2K2 here again, and I'm here to give my thoughts on the new Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. The story, in a nutshell, sees Bruce Wayne coming out of retirement to do Batman again. He faces a new and more powerful villain in Bane, who just literally kicks Batman's ass in their first fight scene together. Bane takes over the city of Gotham with a bomb. He's going to blow Gotham to smithereens. Batman returns with the help of a new character, Selina Kyle, who plays Catwoman, even though they don't refer to her as Catwoman throughout this movie. She's more of the cat burglar, which works out okay. And he also receives help from another new character, a new officer in the movie, John Blake. So yeah, that's the story in a nutshell. It's definitely a lot longer than that. The movie's about 3 hours long. The movie starts off in a kick-ass way with this awesome fight scene with Bane, and then after this huge action scene, this airplane action scene that they have in the beginning of the film, it gets very slow. The first half of the movie is both interesting and also very boring. A lot of character development, a lot of dialogue. Literally, in the first 20 minutes of the film, Bane is introduced, Selina Kyle is introduced, and Miranda Tate is introduced. That is a lot of characters to be introducing in the first half of a movie. And it's like I said, the first half is interesting, but it's also really boring. There's so much dialogue, so much character development that the first half just seems to lag. Even though the story itself is interesting, it just feels like it's lagging throughout the entire half. A lot of the scenes that you think would work out like really great, like the first scene, with Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne, is almost kind of glanced over. Then they do this like dancing scene between the two of them where the dialogue is just so heavy that you have trouble kind of following it throughout most of it. And that's one thing I really have to criticize Christopher Nolan for, for his entire Batman series. Just really too heavy on the dialogue, too much story that he's trying to tell in like these long dialogue scenes, and it just doesn't pan out too well for a lot of the first half of the movie. Now, the first, the action-wise in the first half of the movie is very light. Obviously, the big action scene is the fight scene between Batman and Bane, which comes off a little mixed up for me. I like, the way the dialogue was set up. That's one of the scenes where the dialogue just really worked out well, for the character of Bane, just the character development of that character, and, that part of the scene worked out well. But Christopher Nolan went for a more kind of silent fight scene. All you're hearing is kind of the grunts and the punches and then the dialogue. There's no music attached to the first fight scene with Batman and Bane, which I felt kind of made it feel kind of hollow. I felt that adding more dramatic music would have made it a little more dramatic, would have made it pay off a little better. But the first fight scene, with Bane breaking Batman's back, yes, he does break Batman's back in this movie, didn't, I think, live up to the hype. I felt that the lack of music and the lack of that element did kind of hurt it a bit. And also, him breaking Batman's back kind of came off a little, phony in the movie. If this were like Joel Schumacher's work, and I know that seems like an insult, with Bane, the way he lifts up Batman, the way he breaks his back, it came off kind of phony throughout the whole thing. It came off really unrealistic compared to what Nolan has done with the rest of the series. It came off a little too unrealistic. The way he lifted Batman up, it kind of made it a little more humorous than anything else. The second half of the movie is the big war. It's this big action scene. And you know what? They do a lot of twists and turns throughout the second half of the movie. One in particular that just kicks ass, and it's with the character of John Blake. At the very end of the movie, that was such a great twist that Christopher Nolan did, and he kept that very secret. And to keep things secret in today's day and age with movies, is almost considered impossible. But he did it, and the ending actually came off being one of the best elements of the movie. One twist that I don't think worked as well as, obviously I think Christopher Nolan wanted it to, was making Miranda Tate the villain. It came off as, I think, an unnecessary twist. I think if they had left it out, I think it would have been better off that way. Because up until that point, I thought Bane was great as a solo villain. I didn't like the fact that they introduced this other character as working with him throughout the entire thing. I thought that was a bit weird, and it came off, even the audience in theaters, you can kind of tell, it kind of groans and all this stuff, that it was a really uninteresting twist that didn't need to be there. And again, I'm trying not to give so much away, but with movies like this, I sometimes can't help it. But from an acting standpoint, this is definitely, I think, the strongest of the three from an acting standpoint. Christian Bale gives, I think, the best performance he's ever given as Batman, which says a lot, because quite frankly, Batman is not in the movie. The character himself in the costume is not in the movie as much as he was in the previous movies. Batman is only in about 30% of the movie. He's actually, it's more Bruce Wayne than it is Batman. In fact, the concept alone feels a little more like Tim Burton's concept when it came to his version of Batman, where less was more with the Batman character. And that seems to be the case with The Dark Knight Rises. It's like the less we see Batman, the more happy we are to see him on screen. And I thought that worked out best. Tom Hardy as Bane. I like Tom Hardy as Bane. I thought he worked out really well. The only problem I think I ever had with the character while watching the movie was kind of the voice. The accent itself was a great idea. I like the accent, but for some reason he is tough to make out. He's tough to understand throughout the movie. When he talks fast, you cannot tell what the hell he's saying. It kind of makes you wish you had a rewind button in theaters just to see if you can understand him. But he makes almost no sense in some scenes, and that does kind of ruin the character throughout some scenes, and that's kind of unfortunate. But overall, I like the character. And the entire climax with Bane is actually really cool. When he takes over Gotham, I thought that was really cool. Some really cool moments with the character. Anne Hathaway as Selina Kyle came off a lot better than I thought she was. I was expecting the worst for this character, mainly because I really never liked Anne Hathaway as an actress. I thought before this point that she was a very poor actress, and I thought she was a poor poor choice for the role of Selina Kyle, especially considering the shoes she has to fill for the last person who played Selina Kyle, and that was Michelle Pfeiffer, who just completely stole the show with her performance. And I wasn't really expecting nearly as much with Anne Hathaway, but to be quite honest, she does okay. Obviously not as good as Michelle Pfeiffer was, but she pulls off the role pretty well. I like the villain side of the character, but I also like the more, the nicer side of the character. The character that we see, when she's interacting with Batman and Bruce Wayne. This friendlier side of the character, but also the villain side works out pretty well. Some of her dialogue, on the other hand, some of the one-liners that she's given is a bit off, but besides that, the character works out fine. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as John Blake was awesome. Levitt is such a great actor, and he pulls off the role really well. And again, he's part of that great ending of the movie, so I have nothing bad to say about him. Marion Cotillard, I can't pronounce her last name very well, but she plays Miranda Tate. Miranda Tate, the character itself, the actress, she gives an okay performance, but the character Miranda Tate, like I said before, just feels like she's just there. Like, she has no reason to be here, and the fact that she is introduced as the villain was such a letdown. I didn't really, I hated her being introduced as the villain, and, the character itself just feels like she has no reason to be in this film. They could have done the movie without her, and it would have been just as good. But acting-wise, she does a great job, to say the least. Overall, with The Dark Knight Rises, if I had to give it a score, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I know that's not a great score by any stretch, but it's not terrible either. The movie does suffer from a lot of lagging moments. The action is great. And the story, I think, Christopher Nolan was going for this just great story. And if you just really pay attention to the story itself, it's actually really great and well written. The problem is that the movie does lag a little too much. It can get boring. The action scenes is what kind of kept people from falling asleep in theaters. Because I did notice that a few people were really bored throughout the first half of the movie. So, as a conclusion to Nolan's franchise, it could have been better, but it could have been a hell of a lot worse. So the movie is definitely good enough to, I think, see in theaters. Can I watch the movie repeatedly? When it comes out on DVD? I don't know. The only credit I'll give DVD is that I'm able to fast forward through a lot of the lagging moments. But in theaters, the lagging moments do tend to kind of outweigh the whole thing. But again, it's good. It's not terrible. If you want to go watch it, go right ahead. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you next time.